Hey all, I'm just going to create a little Rive example for you. I know early access just released, and um, if you're anything like me, you've got some questions on how some things work. The tutorials were great, of course, but it left me with a lot of questions still on how things actually work, in a practical manner. So I just wanted to share this because I think it actually could help some folks out there getting a better understanding of how the data models work, how the view models work, how to bind everything together in a practical example like creating a loading bar. And then, using something like mapping a range, which I had to do a lot of playing with to understand it because there's no tutorials yet. And then there's just some little quirks, little intricacies that I'll go over to kind of show you how everything works. What I'll do actually is I'll show you the finished example first, and then we'll go through how it all works, and we'll redo kind of all of the binding part of this. So at the top here, you'll see I've got just a standard loader. So a min value, a max value, so 0 and 100, and then a bar. And then this little guy down here is just going to show the current value. Obviously, the green part of this bar should go the width of this backdrop based on the current value. So if it's, the min's 0, the max is 100, then this current value would be 50. Obviously, we'll go over all of that. With interpolation just means that you can do this. This is great because previously I was doing this in code, which is a huge hassle. You don't want to do that. Now doing it in Rive, you can actually add interpolation directly in the editor. So designers have better control, which is fantastic. I'll show you how that works. And then with the layout as well, so you can make responsive loaders, which is also awesome. So what I'll show you is how it works. We'll just go and animate it right now. We'll look at our view model. We've got a color property, which is bound to the bars. We've got a current value, max value, and a minimum value. So if I modify the current value, you can see it's going to modify it in all of the loaders. And you can see if I go quickly, you'll notice in the one with the interpolation right here, it will go a little quicker, or sorry, a little bit more smoothly. You can see it animating nicely and easing there, which is great. But what's cool about this is that you can change these numbers to anything, and this is what's been so important for us. Being able to change these at runtime will be absolutely key. So if I wanted my max value instead, maybe it's not 100, maybe it's 150, right? Now, my current value, if I set it to 50, it should only take up a third of the loader, right? Don't know why this one isn't doing that. That's strange. But we'll fix that. That's very strange indeed. I might not have something bound properly to that bar, but we'll fix that when we go over the example. It might not have the max value. Yeah, it's basing the max on that. That's wrong. I'll fix that. We'll fix that together. And then, yeah, so you can see now it goes up to 150, and my halfway point would be 75, right? So it works in those two, but not in that one. So we're going to recreate this using all the converters and the view model here. So really simple. Hopefully this gives you a better understanding of how things work. And I'll try to go quickly because, I know time is important for everybody. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, and just so you know, if you want this file, I'm happy to share it. Currently, I've tried testing this. You can post early access files on the community, but it doesn't come with the data architecture, the view models that you've set up. So what we'll have to do is, if you want this example, just post on the thread I'm going to post on X, and then I'll fire you a message. We'll fire you a DM, and then I'll just get your email, and I can just email it to you. Or just you can message me in Discord in the Rive channel, and I can post it there as well. So what do we do, right? Let's create our view model. So the first thing we're going to do is create a view model, and we're just going to call this, I don't know, loader. Oh, there goes the screen. Okay, we're just going to call it loader. And the first things we'll do is we'll hook up all of the numbers. So we're going to create three numbers, three number properties. One will be called min. So that's the minimum value. We'll have current, and we will have max. We will also create a color property, and then we'll just call this bar. Right, so that'll just be the color of the bar there. So super simple. We'll start by just binding this data. So how do we do that? First thing, very important. I've pinged the Rive guys about this because I missed it and I was very confused for a while. But very important, you got to bind your artboard to your view model. So if you click on your artboard, and you'll see up here, there's the data bind property for the model, and you've got to bind it to the view model you just made, or none of this works, okay? So we'll bind that. And then, of course, there's different instances. I've only got the one instance, and I don't really need more for this project, but you can select it there as well. So now it's bound. Now we can start binding data. So how do we do that? There's two different ways. So the first one, if we look at our text run, so we go to the hierarchy, and we select the text run, okay? And you'll see here that it's yellow. So there's nothing bound there right now. This might be because I duplicated my previous file, which was bound. It might not show yellow for you. It might just be blank. If I copy this, let's just test that out. Whoops, I did it twice. So if we look at this one, okay, it's also bound, so let's unbind. So it'll probably look like this for you. Or it might be yellow. I don't have any idea. So we'll just delete that. So now, first way of doing it, we need to select the run we're going to be binding in our hierarchy. And then we're going to go back to the data over here, and you'll see the min number. And then there's this little squiggly. So this is the first way of binding it. You just click and hold on this, and you just drag it all the way over to the input and let go, and it'll bind it. I don't think it bound because it's already bound to something. So we'll unbind that first, and then we'll do that again just to show you how it works. So we'll go back. Okay, so now why doesn't that work, right? It's still yellow. What could be going on? Well, it's because we're trying to put a number into a string. Text runs are always strings, not numbers. So that's very important. You cannot use a number in a text run, but you can convert it. So let's add a converter. So we're going to go over here. We're going to create a converter for string. And there's one here called convert to string. So essentially what this does, it'll take your number value and it'll just say, nope, this is a string type now. And now you can put it into a text run, okay? So now we can go back. Let's go and select it again. Go to our data. So now we should be able to unbind that. Go back, drag it over. Now it's still yellow, of course, because we haven't selected that converter. So before I do that, here's the second way of binding things because they're kind of adjacent. So instead of going from the squiggly, you can actually just go to the input and right click, and then there's this data bind option. You click on that and it's going to give you this menu. So we're going to bind the property here. So this is our minimum value. Okay, and then we're going to add our converter. So convert to string. Now it's green. Okay, great. So what does that mean? Now, if I go to animate mode and I hit play, it says 0.0. That's because we haven't rounded it. So we can go back to our converter here and we can round to decimal places, remove trailing zeros. So let's just do that. So now you can see it's just 0. Now if we go and we click on the view model and we click on min number, if we adjust this, you can see it adjusts it when we're playing the state machine. Awesome. Now, when the state machine is stopped, it's just going to reset to that default value. Actually, it'll just reset to the value you've set in the text run itself. So, if this was 5, then it's always going to show 5 when the state machine isn't running. If I play the state machine, you can see it goes back to 0. That's because I have set the default for min to 0. But our min is going to be 0, so we're actually going to keep that. So let's go back there, change it back to 0. Okay, so now let's do the rest of our bindings. So now we'll go to the 100. So this is going to be our max value. Go to the run. And this might already be bound. Nope, okay. So we're going to update the bind. Property is max. And we're going to add the converter again. So now it's 100. And now this will be bound as well. Then the next one is the value here. So this is the current value. So let's go there. Go there. Update our bind. The property is current. And we're going to convert that as well. Okay. So now we're going to do the rest of them. So let's do that real quick. Oops. Go to our min value here. Update our bind, min, convert. Go to this one, max value. And I've labeled all the layers nicely, so you won't have any trouble finding all this stuff. Current, work string. Okay. Oh, lost me again. Using my phone to record, so it's heavy. Okay, so we got our min value here. Update our bind, min, convert, and max. So just so you are aware, the layouts just means it's responsive, so you can adjust this as you want, and it will show you the correct data. So max, convert. Okay, current value, update bind, current, and string. Okay, so now we need to figure out how the bars are going to function, okay? So the first thing you need to do is you need to look at your bar. Now, I've got a bar that's a certain width in these ones. Now this is fixed, right? Because this one isn't using layout. So if I look at this bar here, so let's dive in. Oh, it doesn't want to. Okay. Oh no, it's just selecting the group. Okay, so we've got the backdrop bar. So this is going to be the total width of the bar, right? So then we want to, if you're doing this from scratch, you just want to duplicate that bar because the total width would then be 100%. So if I go 100% here, you'll see it goes to 100%. Now, something to keep in mind, obviously this is really important. If you have experience with Rive, you'll be fine. But for those of you that may not, what's really important here is you need to make sure your origin point is on the side you want the loader to start on. Otherwise, your scaling is going to actually start from that origin point. So if we go 50-50, right, and then we move it into the middle, you'll see if I scale this, it scales from the origin point. So you want to make sure that your origin point is set to 0 there. Okay, so like I said, if you change this to 100, it takes up the full width of the bar. And we're going to use this to actually modify how the loader functions. So go to 50%. Now what we need to do is it needs to be normalized because this is a percentage. A percentage won't work with a number input. And this is going to be our current value between 0 and whatever the max is. So we have to normalize that. So what we'll do, and you know what? I think it does it for you automatically. So what we're going to do is we're going to unbind this for now. And then we're going to just go to our current value and we're going to do this way. So let's bind current to the scale property up here. Okay, yeah, so it turns green right away. Notice it also creates a normalized converter automatically, which is nice. And while we're here, we'll also bind the color property. So we've got the bar color. So all we do is drag that on there. and now we've bound the color property. So let's do that for the rest of these. A little different with this one down here, but we'll go over that. So I'm going to unbind this, and we'll just do it like this again. So we got our current value, bind that to the scale, and then we'll bind the color. And then for this one, is it a little different? No, the only difference is that you know, this backdrop bar is just a group or a layout row. That's the only difference. The actual bar itself is the same. So let's bind this again. Current. Bind it to that, and then we will bind our color. Okay. So I think everything is bound now. So let's do some testing, because there's going to be a few more things. We've got to map a range, and then we've got to just set up our converter groups and everything so this works nicely. So let's do that. So let's just test to make sure all of our data functions properly. We're going to click on this. This is the view model from a high level, so you can actually see all of the different properties that you've got in here in your view model. If I hit play, what's going to happen is all the bars are going to turn gray because that's the default color. So I'm actually, before we even do that, I'm going to change the default color to this green. So let's hit play. Good. Now, everything's 0, which makes sense because those are my values that are currently in my view model. Now, if I change the max to 100, okay, changes all the max values to 100. If I change the current value to 50, it changes all the current values to 50, and same with the indicators there as well. If I modify the bar color, it works too. Great. So it looks like everything is working properly. So as you could imagine, this goes to 100. It goes back down. Now you could stop here if you wanted to. If you're just creating a loading bar that goes to 100%, you know, you don't need to do any of these next steps. But you know, if you want to learn how to normalize this and how to map a range, then you know, feel free to stick around and check this out too. It took me a lot of playing to get it right and to understand it. So, and then I can show how conditionals work with all of this included as well. So all of these values work great. But now, what happens if I go and what happens if my max is 150? Great, but my bar doesn't show halfway anymore. So if I go 75, you know, that's 3/4. That doesn't make any sense. So let's fix that. And move me down here. Okay. How we do that is we are going to create I believe we have to create a group. So we'll create a group. Sure, convert group 1. First thing that's going to happen is we're going to add, so you got to do this over here. This was a little confusing to me as well when I started, but you want to go over here, existing, and we've got our normalize. So let's add that. And then the next thing that's going to happen is we need to map a range. So you can either do it one of two ways. You can add a new converter over on this side, or you can just add one right to the group. So new, where is it? Map range. Okay. So now we're going to map our range. Our input. So this is the values that we currently have. The output is what we want the bars and you know whatever our artboard shows to show. So what we want to do here is our input is actually going to be bound to our minimum value. So min. Now this might be a little confusing too because it shows 1 here, but the minimum value is actually set to 0. They said that they're going to be fixing this so the data display is a little bit more consistent because this is just a bit confusing. So I'm going to change it to 0 here, even though it's already 0 in my view model, just to make it easy to understand. So then we've got our top value. Now this is where we're going to bind our max value. Because now our max value can be anything. But now what we're going to do is we're going to say that that's our min. This is our max, which we're going to just, again, manually set to 100, but it doesn't really matter. And then our output, if you can see here, there's a little like settings thing. Click on that. And then you want to select 0 to 100 because 0% on the scale of the bars is 0%. 100 is 100% of the scale of the total bar. So it makes sense to use 0 to 100 here. Great. So we'll do the interpolation separately. So let's just see if this works now. So let's go and back to our view model. Oh, you know what we haven't done yet? We haven't mapped these. So this will still not work. Let's quickly change our defaults. So our max to 100 and our current to 50, just so we don't have to keep going back and forth. Okay, so that works good. Now, you'll see here that this probably isn't going to do anything. Yeah, so now if I go back and I change the max to 150, yeah, it still doesn't update because we haven't bound it yet. So what we want to do is we want to bind our min. So let's go to, oh, do we have to go to all of them again? We might. Yeah, that's unfortunate. We should have done it earlier. So I'm still learning too. Don't judge me. So we've got our min value here. Go to update bind. We've got convert to string. Oh, we might need to add the convert to string as well into our group. Let's just try to, yeah, okay. That's what we're gonna have to do. Okay, so if we update our binds to add it to converter group 1, so we've got our converter group 1. So for, oh, you know what? No, we don't. Sorry, that's my fault. We actually don't need to modify that at all because the numbers are staying consistent. The only thing we're worried about is the bar, not the numbers. Numbers are fine, bar's not. So we just need to bind the bar. So let's bind the bar. Go to our value here. So back to design mode. Okay. Now, oh, it wasn't the path. Okay. So now, obviously, we've got a scale here. So what we're going to do is with our scale, we're going to update this because right now it's just going to normalize. And that's not going to do it, right? So we need to convert this. We need to normalize it, and then we need to map it. So now we'll convert the group. So add to converter group 1. And then let's just make sure that works before we continue. So we'll go back to our view model. Our max is, let's say, 125 now. Let's say 150. Okay, so if we change our current value, so now it's halfway. So there you go, that worked. So let's do that for the other ones real quick. So we'll update this bind and we'll use converter group 1. And we'll update this one to, oops, sorry, misclicked, to converter group 1. Now, let's check it out again. Okay. Now let's go look at our data. So we've got, that works good. Let's change our max to 150 and change to 75, which is halfway, and it works like a charm. Now, there's one more thing we can do to make this really cool, but first let's do the interpolation. So the only thing that's going to be different with this one is that we're going to add an interpolation converter to this specific bar. So let's go and add a converter. So we're just going to convert, we're going to duplicate this converter group. So converter group with interlop. So all we're doing now is we're just going to add a new so a numeric time-based interpolator. And then we can really do whatever we want here. You can make it crazy. You can, just ease in, ease out, whatever. We'll leave it at the defaults just for testing purposes. Then we'll go back to our layer, the bar here, and then we'll make sure that this bind is actually with the it's already with the interlop. That's a bug. I will post that to the guys in Rive because that doesn't make any sense at all. That shouldn't be the duplicated one. That should be the one that it originated from. So, but we'll leave that one, and then I guess these ones will be wrong. Yeah. So we're gonna go back to converter group 1. Did it add an extra 1 when I duplicated it? I'm gonna have to test this again and then send it to the guys. Converter group 1. Okay. So now let's test it again. 0, 100. So you can see now there's a nice easing function. Again, you had to do this in code before, so this is amazing. Okay, so this works great. Last thing is if you want some extra functionality. Again, this is all completely optional, but it shows out how the new conditionals work. So what I've done is I've set up a couple extra timelines. We've just got the base timeline, which just is the default properties for the bar itself, and then the default color for the current value. You could bind this to a color value as well, but I didn't. So we've got the value bar. So these are just the defaults. And then I've set up another timeline for if the bar itself is over the max value or if it's under the min value. So just to represent there's too much or there's too little. And then there's just a really easy setup on our timeline in our state machine. So obviously this isn't set up yet because this is a duplicated file, but the timeline for over under. So what we want to do is we want to select if our current value is greater than our max value, then it's going to go to the over under. Now, we want to go back to the green timelines, like the default values, if it's less than or equal to. So if our current value is less than or equal to our max value. So let's test this, make sure it works. Play it. So our current value is good. If we go over, boom, now it's red. And I'm sure you can add easing and stuff to this as well. I've actually not tried that. Let's add some interpolation and duration of 300 milliseconds. I don't know if this will actually do anything, but oh, there you go. Nice little fade in. Cool. Now we just do the same thing for if the minimum values. So if our current value is, oh, it was nice enough to set this already, less than our min, go to this one. And if it is greater than or equal to, great, yes, that. Our min, go to that one. So now let's test it again. And there you go. And what's great about this is that it actually works, with our mapped range as well. So if we change that to 150, it's only going to show the red if we go over that max. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to set up two versions of this file. One with the completed example that you're seeing right now, and then one more with the view model stripped out. I don't know if the view model actually gets saved and then transferred to the next person. So we'll have to just play that by ear if you're interested in taking a look at this. So yeah, I'm going to post this on X. Yeah, give it a like, whatever. Just post in the thread in the comments if you want this. Maybe you can just follow along by yourself. That's totally cool too. But I hope that this helps somebody out there because it took me a while to get a good understanding of this. And there's not that many tutorials or anything out there yet. So hopefully, hopefully you have a good Friday and, maybe see you in the next one.